How in the world are Liverpool Football Club funding this ridiculous transfer window this summer in 2025? I'm going to show you exactly how they are going to pay for all of these ridiculous transfers. And I got to say right off the bat, big credit to Mo Shatra on X for his fantastic breakdown. I'm using a lot of his information here. So let's look first and foremost at what Liverpool are doing this summer. Now, this whole breakdown is based on not just what has already happened, but the rumors of what could happen. And that includes, yes, Mark Gahey coming in, that includes Rodrigo coming in, and that even includes Alexander Isak coming in. And I'm going to show you how all of these things, all of these players could still come in, even with Florian Wirtz, Ekitike, all the transfers. I'm going to show you how this is actually possible and how Liverpool are going to pay for it. So massive squad overhaul, 484 million pounds of projected new signings and 263 million in departures is absolutely crazy. So Liverpool really is executing an unprecedented rebuild, spending that amount of money and getting rid of that amount of players. It is one of the largest single window transformations in football history, maybe the largest. But they're doing this with smart financial engineering. That's what we're calling it. Despite these huge transfers, Liverpool only needs like 150 million pounds for incoming installments versus the almost 100 million from outgoings. And I'm going to show you how they're breaking that down, basically by pushing off some of these payments into the future. So that is creating what is basically a manageable 55 million pound net cash requirement for summer of 2025. Now, this really is PSR mastery. They've kind of figured out the puzzle, right? And I think maybe some other teams have started to figure this out as well. But let's say Liverpool go out and they spend 485 million pounds in a single window. Well, that's going to be amortized over 5 years. So they're basically only paying around 97 million annually, while they've sold this summer 263 million in sales. And that's not all going to be realized this summer, but a lot of that, much more than the purchases, are immediate profit. So that means Liverpool will actually show an accounting profit despite a massive spending spree. Okay, so they're also doing this in a way that is not just getting rid of good players that don't fit Slot's system. I think the magic of Arne Slot is he can take what is already there, get rid of the things he doesn't need, maybe the aging or fringe players, and bring in prime age superstars like Alexander Isak, Florian Wirtz, and Rodrigo. Okay, so if you think about the players that are rumored to leave, like Elliott, Doak, Bajcetic, Luis Diaz, those players are good, but didn't have a place in Arne Slot's team. Even guys like Tsimikas or Andy Robertson might be offloaded to bring in, players that they've already signed, like Frimpong and Kirkes. So they're doing all this spending in strategic ways. They're not just going out and spending ridiculous amounts of money to spend, like Manchester United do or Man City have done. Last January they spent 200 million. This is incredible. Like, there are so many crazy, rival fans out there who are saying that Liverpool are greedy and they're ruining the league for spending. They're only spending like what Chelsea and Manchester City have done in the last 5 years. This is, by the way, Liverpool's first ever transfer window where they've spent over 200 million pounds. First ever for Liverpool. Do you know how many times Man City and Chelsea have done that? They've done it 6 times each. 6 times each. This is Liverpool's first time. So don't talk to me about being greedy. This is Michael Edwards' new model, okay? Forget the days of we're building for the future, we're doing a slow build, we're bringing in one or zero big names in a window, we're buying players when they're 17 or 18 so we get them cheaper and we grow them into superstars. Forget the days of Liverpool finding diamonds in the rough like Andy Robertson. They are now building a dynasty, and they are going to, this is the first step. This summer is the first step. They're going to build a dynasty, and they're going to keep it that way. They are going to keep it that way. So they're doing this one fell swoop strategy And then over time, they're just going to have to tinker, right? You look at the stars they're signing. Florian Wirtz, coming in at age 23, he is probably one of the best, if not the best, attacking midfielders in the world. They're going to have him for the next 7-8 years. All they need to do after this summer is just tinker, is just find this, replace Van Dijk, replace Mo Salah. They're going to do that over time. This is a new dynasty that Liverpool are building. So let's look at the detailed statistics and numbers around how Liverpool are actually going to pay for all this. So these are all the projected outgoings that you can see. There are, 11 names on this list. And you can see in the middle column, you've got the transfer fee and then the summer installment, which is what actually Liverpool will net this summer because of the amortizations over the next couple of years. So Luis Diaz for 69, they're only going to realize 23 of that this summer. Darwin Núñez for 50, 16.7 million pounds this summer. So you can see all of these outgoings are only going to produce 93 million this summer. And then the rest will be paid out in the next 2 or 3 years, okay? So Liverpool are selling a lot here. This is projected, of course, but they are selling a lot of players. And let's look at the incomings. So how are Liverpool going to pay for all of these huge names? Well, we already know that Florian Wirtz is going to be paid out over 5 years to Leverkusen. And there's also going to be some other players. Well, every player on this list, besides Pechi, are going to be paid out over time. So if we signed Alexander Isak for 120, that's ridiculous. But we're not paying all of that in one summer. We're only paying 40 of that, right? So if you look at that summer installment line, we've only got 149 million to pay this summer. The rest is going to be paid out over time. So you can start to see how some of these names are not that far off. It's not ridiculous to think about Liverpool going out and signing Alexander Isak after they've already signed Wirtz, Ekitike, Kirkez, Frimpong, and they could also go out and get Mark Guéhi and Rodrigo because they're selling a lot of players, and the players they're bringing in, not all of that money is being spent lump sum this summer. So I think that's really interesting. Now, let's look at a few other things on how Liverpool are doing that. So this credit facility leverage, I think this is incredibly important. Liverpool have basically opened, I think maybe a year or two ago, a 350 million pound credit facility, and they've only used 116 million of that. So, don't think that Liverpool have, 500 million pounds just sitting in a bank account ready to spend. They are using a credit facility. So they're using debt, but they're using it very wisely because they are bringing in names. These are investments. These players are investments that they're bringing in to basically use and leverage against that credit facility. So that's a really important thing to think about when you wonder, like, well, how are Liverpool paying for this? How are they doing this after years, decades of not having any money to spend? They're actually doing this in a very, very smart financial way because they've only used about 116 million of that 350 million. So you see, they've actually got a decent amount of borrowing power to cash flow immediate transfer payments while waiting for those revenue streams and maybe those player sales to bring in additional revenue. So with that, the player sales revenue, the club, this summer could see about 125 million pounds from player departures. And they probably get an additional like 30 million pounds from other installment payments from previous sales. So they could realistically generate about 155 million pounds of total incoming cash to offset those new signings. Now, Liverpool have we've talked about this before, very strong operating cash flow. They're generating around 160 million pounds per year. And they've got, projected 750 million in revenue for the season. 430 million of that goes to wages, 160 million for other costs. Liverpool generate about 160 million net operating cash annually, and that's more than enough to cover the 135 million net transfer spend after sales. So, those numbers are general. Don't take them as super specific. But they now have this installment payment structure, and they are now spreading those costs over time. Those transfer fees are paid in installments, 3 years for most. For Florian Wirtz, it was 5 years. So that means only $149 million needs to be paid this summer from that $484 million in total commitments, which is just insane. But you're starting to see how this actually makes financial sense. So Liverpool are essentially saying, we're going to go out and get a ridiculous amount of talent this summer, but we're not paying for it all in this summer. The cash flow is still manageable. We've already talked about this a little bit, but PSR, profit optimization, sales as pure profit versus amortized purchases. So player sales like Luis Diaz for $69 million, for example. Really only this summer, we're getting $14 million in book value, which means we're seeing $55 million in profit. Okay, and that is by the PSR standards. So that provides immediate accounting profits. Okay, so it's not that we're seeing that money right away, but from an accounting perspective, it looks like $55 million in profit. That makes PSR much more. It just makes it easier to stay compliant. The new signings are amortized over contract length. Okay, so for Florian Wirtz, $20 million a year instead of $100 million all at once. From an accounting perspective, it means that Liverpool are able to create favorable PSR numbers that unlock that spending capacity. Okay, so I know that was a lot, but I've wondered how Liverpool are actually going to pay for all this, and this was really helpful. Again, Mo Shatra on X, fantastic thread. I'd love to know what you think. Basically, to sum it all up, Liverpool are selling a lot of players that give them high amounts of accounting profit, and then they're going out and buying players and amortizing those giant, $100 million or $120 million fees over 3 to 5 years. So they're basically just pushing out those things. And essentially, if you look at it, it's like, well, you're putting it on a credit card or on a mortgage, and then you're paying for it over time. That's what Liverpool are doing. And I think that's a fantastic way to do it. I think, Richard Hughes, arneslot, Michael Edwards, and even John W. Henry are probably looking at Liverpool right now and saying, this is the time. This is the time to invest, and we could dominate for the next 10 years and beyond. I really do think that. The way that world football is set up right now, the way that the Premier League is set up, Liverpool are going to grab this thing by the horns, and they're not going to let go for a decade plus. And I think that's super exciting as a Liverpool fan. So let me know what you think. Get your comments in below. As always, at the Reds.